Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Titan. In today's episode, the user asked the question, late night hikers, what is the creepiest thing you have seen while hiking? And these are all the answers you're not going to believe. Not hiking so much as car camping, but we were way the out there in the middle of nowhere on BLM land in Colorado. We drove for an hour and a half down a Forest Service road and didn't see another soul. You could see headlights and hear cars from miles away from our campsite. It sounded like somebody could have snuck up unnoticed. We had 3 cars with us and 8 people. Just got done eating dinner, cleaned up, and it was getting dark, so I went back to the cars real quick before hitting our tents for the night. Somebody had slashed the front tire at each of the 3 cars with what appeared to be a box cutter. Everyone thought it was a prank, but it became very apparent very quickly that it wasn't. All of us were beyond spooked, like panicking, scary to watch spooked. We all had spares, and one dude had a gun, so we threw on our donuts while that guy literally guarded us and got the hell out of there. I still have nightmares about it sometimes. Just knowing there's some person probably watching us, maybe wanting to harm us, makes me feel physically ill to this day. I go out for walks very late at night, fairly often, so I've seen a few things. The creepiest though happened about 2 months ago. I left the house around 1:30 a.m. and it started off as a normal walk. I went around the town till about 2 a.m. when I decided to go home. I was walking back the route I had came when I noticed a black van meandered down the street. Didn't really pay too much attention to it though at first. I did pay attention though when I saw it slowly drive by me for a second time. I wasn't entirely sure it was the same van though, so I just continued walking. But this time I kept an eye out, and lo and behold, about 10 minutes later, the same damn black van came down the street again. This time I knew for sure because it didn't have a license plate. Now I was fairly scared, so I picked my pace up a little bit. When the van came around again this time, it stopped in the middle of the road, a few houses in front of me. I stopped, turned around, and booked it back in the other direction. I made a few turns into different roads, and then ran right into someone's yard. I waited behind their fence, and then the same van came down the street. I assumed that when they couldn't find me, they finally decided to off. But I waited in that yard for about 20 minutes before I ran back to my house and practically threw myself through my bedroom window. I used to often spend my summers bouldering with my friends by a relatively large forest that was about an hour and a half away from where I used to live. We used to spend some of the nights camping out there just to save some travel costs and time. Anyway, I think this was roughly like the 3rd or 4th time we were out there camping. My friend had left all her climbing gear and her rucksack just outside her tent, where we definitely think she did anyway. The next morning, we found her boots, a few clothes, and all her chalk powder had disappeared. We figured that it could have been completely feasible that she misplaced it. Although we were quite sure that they were next to her tent, we didn't really want to believe that they were stolen. Anyway, we didn't read too much into this and just stupidly said to ourselves that perhaps she had left it by the boulders and some animal took interest into it. I know it sounds stupid, but it was very reasonable to us at the time. Anyway, fast forward a year, we're at the same spot as usual, sitting by the tents and chilling after having some food. Mind you, it's pitch black out, and only the camp area is lit by the fire. I go somewhere a bit out of sight for a slash, and what do I see? A dude in a full-on ghillie suit laying on his stomach, looking right towards our campsite. I kinda stood there frozen as this dude clocks that I've seen him, and he just bolts it out of there. I don't know whether the event to the year prior was related to the ghillie guy, but this definitely has stuck to all of us. We haven't been back there since, which is a damn shame. I go hiking in the woods that permeate my town, sometimes so late that I get to see the sunrise out there. The strangest thing I ever saw was what I could only describe as a shanty town was built up, seemingly overnight, deep into the woods. Simple little hovels made of scrap metal and bed sheets and a small fire pit that someone had made out of an old tire with the fire still burning. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part was that this was well past midnight when I found this place, and it was quiet as a grave. There was no one there. Someone made the trouble of getting a fire going and then left it. From the look of it, this place could hold about a dozen or so people, and yet there was nothing there but the fire they abandoned and whatever possessions they had left in the shanties. It was in the summer around dusk, and I was camping at a remote campground with my dad. There was a lake right next to the grounds, and my dad and I would trailblaze through the forest right next to the lake because if you went far enough, there was a really pretty waterfall. A few strange things happened on this hike. We found a slash pile that had a little kid's shoe on top. When we came to a small clearing, my dad had to take a leap. So he faced one side of the clearing and I faced the other, and we both clearly heard a child say, "I'm over here!" My dad thought it was me, and when we realized it wasn't, we spent half an hour looking for someone, but we found nobody. After that, we gave up on going to the waterfall and started to make our way back to camp. But there were clear sounds of something following us, twigs snapping, bushes shaking. We haven't been camping there since. I was walking around my neighborhood alone once, enjoying the night air and watching the stars. There was this little pond near my house with a wooded area that had trees, a bench and a rope swing that went out over the water. I sat down on the bench to look at the stars, and I heard some rustling off to my right, towards the trees. Bears were not uncommon where I'm from, so I took out my flashlight and shone it around over there. I didn't see anything. It freaked me out, so I kept my flashlight on and my senses were aware. But I stayed on the bench to mull over my thoughts and watch the sky some more. I don't know why I did that, because that's typically horror movie. Anyway, a few minutes pass and I hear nothing more, so I lean back into the bench and start to relax a bit. I'm staring up at the sky with my flashlight pointing downwards, so as not to create any light pollution, when I noticed something in the tree in my peripheral vision. I couldn't tell what it was, but the branch was swaying slightly, and the rustling noise was back too. I immediately sat up and stared at it, but hadn't shown my flashlight ID yet in case of pissing off some huge bird or something else. I don't think I've ever been that scared. I remember my heart was beating so fast and I could taste blood. I stared at it for what seemed like forever, and it slowly stopped moving. But the shape was still there. Bears do not climb trees sometimes, so I was hesitant to run away in case that's what it was. So I just kept staring at it. After a while, I mustered up the little raisinous-squee cojones to shine my goddamn light at the tree. It was a man. A man. In the tree. Crouched in the tree like some silent, naked monkey. He had no expression on his face, but his eyes were open really, really wide. When my light landed on him, he started to move like he was going to come down. But I didn't stick around to see if he did. I jumped the bench and ran for the f***ing hills. I ran to my house and around to the back door and locked myself in without looking back once. I went around and made sure every window and door was locked. I even checked the attic. I never go out alone anymore. Usually it's what I hear. Large, fallen branches snapping just out of sight of my headlamp. Or waking up an hour later and hearing steps and leaves rustling. But too exhausted and fearful to inspect or want to know, probably nothing important anyway. One time, I returned to my car after a late night hike with my friends, and my SUV was covered in foot/hand/paw prints. They were just so large and even dragged a little bit in the dust. It was on/near a large military base in the mountains. I think some local enlisted may have made them to scare us, but it was just so well done. Pretty scary for all of us because it's what you'd imagine the Blair Witch would do. No animal did it. I drove to a park to go hiking at night in the mountains. So safe, I know. And I hadn't even turned on my car and I already feel like I'm being watched. There weren't any cars around, so I thought maybe it was just me being paranoid for some reason. But for some reason I look to my right and I see this weird looking humanoid shape on top of a little bump hill about 50 feet away. At first, I thought it was a weirdly shaped tree until I saw the arms move. No wind at all. So now I know there's a person staring at my car, trying not to move. For what I assume is for me to get out of my car and leave to a more secluded area as we were next to the road. Of course, I left. I don't go hiking at night in that particular park anymore. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you did, please like the video, subscribe for more content coming soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.